Hello, guys. Hello, attendees. Welcome to the Epic Guts event. I'm going to let a few more people get on here. I know we got a few people showing up. I'm going to introduce myself in just a second and let you know what you can expect. I'm going to have you guys out of here within the hour. We're going to pack it full of information, and I'm going to give you the perfect resources when we wrap it up. I'm going to probably not go over 45 minutes. We're going to open up. I'm going to try at the 40-minute mark to open up for some questions. We can type into the chat. I won't be able to answer all the questions possibly, and I won't be answering questions until we get to the chat point, but I want you guys to just know kind of what it looks like here, because we are busy people, right? We're here for high value, but we also don't always have a ton of time. So I am going to try and give you guys incredible, impactful information, as digestible as it can possibly be, right? Pun intended. And I'm going to try and do it in an efficient manner, and hope that you can retain it too. So if you have a pen and paper, I would suggest grabbing something for notes, just for things. Okay, you guys are maybe going to have some, you can choose not to take notes, but I'm just guessing you might have a few things you want to write down, maybe some resources or tidbits and things you want to write down. Whatever that looks like, I just want you to feel free to do it. So pen and paper is awesome. And we're going to get started. So welcome to the Epic Guts class. This is our first open class. You guys, I usually teach for the coaches only. Obviously, so I'm Coach Britt. I'm Brittany Oliver Baker. I am better known as Coach Britt, and I am the founding educator of the Holistic Wellness Coaching Academy, or Gut Health School. We are the Gut Health School. And I'm the author of Buddha Belly, a mind, body, soul approach to health, starting with your gut. That book was the catalyst for everything that we've built since then. The coach training program, the personal Buddha Belly gut restoration courses, and all that we work with, all the impact we're making. The Buddha Belly Life podcast, if you haven't caught that yet, where we've interviewed incredible people. I'm going to share a few of their stories later today too in this whole thing. But yeah, so that's me. My story, just a little tidbit. It's always good to have some rapport, right? When someone's up there talking, especially people involved in health, it's kind of hard sometimes if we just assume right away that they're just this healthy person that's just had this cush journey in health, right up there telling all of us, they don't know what we're going through. They don't know what they're talking about in this and this and this. How can you possibly empathize with me? So this is why I like to share just a little bit about my story without dwelling on it too much. So I got into gut health because I had a lifetime of struggling with severe debilitating panic and anxiety and patchy depression. So mental health was huge. I was a very overweight kid, and I didn't really start trying to lose weight until I got a little older. And that was, high school, when you're at that age where you want to lose weight. And I wasn't doing it healthy. I mean, I could tell you guys what I'd eat like half of a white flour bagel and drink Diet Coke every day, you guys, in order to, lose weight, blah, blah, blah. All the wrong things that we don't know when we're young and dumb. And, we're trying to just fit in and feel better about ourselves, gain self-esteem, and we're just after weight, right? But the mental health component was so huge for me, and it really just debilitated me my whole life. I can remember back as early as age 4 having just horrible panic attacks. So this was majority of my life. So it wasn't until I got into my, about 1922-ish that I started really, getting into more health and nutrition and fitness and things like that, and started, losing some weight, additional weight, started implementing a little healthier strategies for things, started getting really interested in health and nutrition. Like I'm sure a lot of you guys, I know a lot of our coaches start like that, right? So I started getting really interested in that stuff, and it's a process. Our process, when we started a health journey, it's such a process. So my process started there. I started learning what real food was. I started seeing improvement. I was losing weight. I was improving a lot of aspects of my health, and I was improving aspects of my mental health, but I was still struggling so hard with those things. And it wasn't until I started seeing so much hormonal dysregulation that I really started getting red flags. By this point in time, I was trying to get pregnant with my first baby. I was a vegetarian for a total of 7 years. And at that time, because I'd grown in my health and grown a little more and figured like this was even healthier, right? Because we want more vegetables and whole foods. Absolutely true. So I had embarked on this journey of vegetarianism and in the way that I did also. Okay. This isn't a pro or anti-vegetarianism. This is just a bit about my story. And so it wasn't until I tried to get pregnant with my first son and couldn't, over a year, I was in my early to mid 20s. There's no reason, I had very regular cycles. There's no reason that I should not have been fertile, actively trying at that age and that time, and could not get pregnant with my child. So this combined with the mental health imbalances, the lifetime of struggling more with weight issues and all these things had me really question that. After over a year, I finally got pregnant and I lost the baby. So I miscarried at 6 weeks. So for people who've gone through miscarriage, men and women and couples, and stuff, it's really hard, especially when it's your first one. You want it so bad and you don't even know if your body can make a baby, and then I went on to have a child really healthily. And then after that, miscarried again. This was like 12 weeks. It was a lot farther along. And it was finally at this point in time that I was like, I don't know. This has got to be my hormones. And I felt that I didn't think that my dietary choice at the time was serving me. I was eating very clean, very well, but I just was having a lot of thyroid and adrenal symptoms, hair loss, skin stuff, like, just all kinds of hormonal things. So I ended up shifting that a little bit. And as I shifted, I ended up getting pregnant with my second son. And it was really during the pregnancy and after the birth of my second son that I really started researching and getting into gut health, you guys. And this was a year or like a decade after getting into health and nutrition in the first place. So when I got into gut health is when I really started seeing changes in my mental health, in some of these deep-rooted hormonal malfunctions that I was dealing with, these things that a healthy diet and lifestyle they weren't helping like they should. I could still just felt like my body was so off. And so when I got into gut health, I ended up completely shifting after all those years of education on my own. I ended up taking it on as a profession and I got into coaching. I got certified as a coach, and my thing was pioneering gut health. And the school I'd gone to didn't have experience with gut health. They really didn't know what it was. So I sort of ended up teaching it there. I ended up writing a book about it just to share with those who needed it. I didn't even know what we were going to do with it. It turned into a course, which turned into the school, which now has been updated and evolved. And now we've got a podcast on it. It's been reprinted, updated, and we use it in our programs. And now we have the whole program and we're doing all this stuff. So that's a lot about my personal story. I could get more into a lot of things. I have lots of events and things in my life, healing from traumas and experiences, much like so many people, right? But that's a little bit about me. So walking those things, when we come out of something super hard, when we overcome, when we're on the journey of trying to restore, of trying to heal something on any level, mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual, it can be daunting, it can be overwhelming, it can feel hopeless because there's so many things, there's so many people. Where the heck do we turn? This is why I love gut health, especially in the way we're going to talk about it today. So kudos to whoever invited you to this class. This was an exclusive invite only class. Keep in mind whoever invited you, because they are the person. If you have any questions after this, that's the person you're going to want to go to. If you guys were invited to this class because you're connected to me on some kind of outlet, on Instagram, on Facebook, on anything, and you've joined this, please feel free to reach out to me with any questions for reference or referrals. So as that, you guys, we're going to get started. Hopefully you get a little bit about me. You get that I'm not totally unlike you. And we're going to get started. So gut health. A lot of people teach gut health, and I will tell you, not a lot of people are going to teach it like we do at this school. Like our coaches emphasize it. And this is why. We teach gut health is often taught in a very analytical, physical way, right? The science of gut health, bacteria and stuff, very analytical, very something we can understand, something we're trying to manipulate and treat and handle and see under a microscope. Where we miss the mark on how we teach gut health is we teach the analytical components, but we teach what we call holistic gut health. So holism, you guys, is mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. We are not shells. We are not just robots. Our bodies don't exist like that. And we can't treat the body like that. We can't just analytically look at the body, treat something, and have it be gone. We're going to get into that a little bit in this class today on things we've seen in people, some case studies, some stories of clients, amazing testimonials, and the multifaceted nature of health in the body, mind, and spirit, and the whole thing. Okay. Don't let it wig you out. I promise it's very understandable. So we're going to get going. So firstly, yes, we teach the analytical component of gut health. So you guys, when I talk about the analytical gut health, and I'm going to give you a little 411 on this, okay? Gut health, the gut is connected to almost all areas of function in the body. It can help, it is connected to almost everything. You'd be hard pressed to find any kind of disease, condition, or function that is not impacted by the gut. This is why I honed in on that. This is why, after 3 decades of my life and suffering, when people would have written me off and said that I was destined to struggle with mental health forever and just treat it and get by in a way that was survive, not thrive. By 30 years of it, they would have probably written me off. And what got me to that place of hope and to see that we truly do, the body and the mind and everything has such an ability to restore, recalibrate if we can tend to it right. This was from understanding gut health, because to understand the gut in a holistic perspective is to understand and really look at the entire body, mind, and person in a different way. Modern medicine and stuff, you guys likes to compartmentalize the human, even the human body, right? That's why we have specialists that are just, you got your ear, nose, and throat doctor, you got your GI specialist, you got your endocrinologist for the thyroid, like all these things. But your body doesn't work like that. It does not have locked trap doors to the different parts of the body. It doesn't work like that. Everything, your hormonal function is tied to your gut function. It affects your brain. It's affected by your brain and the different glands, the pituitary gland, and all these things, right? It's affected by other hormones, your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone, which is induced by stress, which is also, created by other malfunctions if things are off. So honestly, when you look at it, a lot of people can feel super overwhelmed when they're looking at this whole thing, right? They're like, oh my gosh, how do we ever get to the bottom of my issues? I've got this condition, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, right? We've got all of these diagnoses anymore, right? When a lot of the time, a lot of these diagnoses are, in my opinion, they are descriptive terms for sets of symptoms. They're less of a life sentence or a stamp or multiple diseases as they are multiple identifications of areas of dysregulation in the health and body mind, right? On a full holistic level. But as far as understanding the gut goes in a technical sense, okay, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking gut health is like this GI stuff. So if you don't have bathroom issues and etc., and if you're not having stomach aches and massive bloating and constipation or diarrhea or IBS or whatever, then like you don't really have gut issues. And see, the thing is I probably had some visible gut issues technically, but that was never what stood out to me. They weren't bad enough for that to stand out to me. I would think I got a stomach ache a lot when it was related to my anxiety. That was one of my biggest descriptive ways of conveying my anxiety as a child. So pay attention to our kids, right? Because a lot of them will say this. But what comes first? Was it the gut first, or was it the anxiety first affecting my tummy? But a lot of people, just like myself, they may have stronger symptoms that aren't GI related, or at least not lower GI. So it is connected to things, you guys, like if someone has an autoimmune condition, which autoimmunity as a whole is the number one disease or condition affecting civilized I'm sorry, modern, like our modern people, right? Like industrialized countries, right? That's what I'm getting at here. So industrialized countries are the most affected with autoimmune disease. This is topping heart disease. This is topping cancer, even type 2 diabetes. And a lot of this stuff tends to cohabitate with these other diseases too. Okay, so this is a really big deal. And all of this stuff is related to the gut. The skin is one of the, it is the largest organ on your entire body. When the gut is dysregulated, when the body is off, when there's chronic inflammation, when there's toxicity, organs will show things. Your skin is going to tell you so much about the inside of your body, and it has a very, very strong gut tie. So do your gums, you guys, your teeth. really inflamed gums that bleed a lot and stuff are often a sign of an also inflamed gut. Surprise, surprise, right? That's when we're pregnant. Women have a harder time with dental stuff because there's more inflammation going on in their body. There's a multitude of reasons, but that's part of it. Okay, so it's connected to so much. It's connected to mental health big time. Like I said, that's how I got here. The brain gut connection, which we're going to get into in a minute, is so fascinating. It cannot be ignored. It should, in my opinion, it should be an essential component for everybody who's working in any field of health, especially mental health. Any counselor, any specialist, anybody working in mental health at all should understand the brain gut connection, because by not doing this, we're doing a huge disservice to the massive epidemic levels of mental health. So gut 101, there's 3 components of understanding the gut. Okay. We have the structural integrity, the structural part of the gut. Okay. This is going to be when we talk about gut health, you guys know the technical gut is the intestines. It's the small intestine, which is up high, the large intestine, and then the bowel. Like obviously, okay, this is the gut in science terms. But the gut, as far as gut health, when we're referring to it, is everything from mouth to what. For everything from the moment we intake any kind of food to the moment it exits our body after hopefully doing a good job of nourishing us. Okay. Which in the standard American diet is not happening enough. But that is, so when we talk about gut health, we're going to focus a lot on the intestines, but we're also going to focus on more of the stomach too, the esophagus, the enzymes that are breaking down food ahead of time in the mouth, and things like that, and the colon. I mean, so all of this is kind of part of gut health. However, the main emphasis is going to be on the intestinal tract. Okay, this is the structural component of gut health. That's the first of 3 parts. The second is the living ecosystem, you guys. So the living ecosystem, you guys are made, you and I and all of us are made up of more microbes than we are human DNA. It's amazing, okay? Like if you think of all the DNA that makes you a living person, there's just as much, if not more, microbes living on your body that are critical in your existence and survival, as there's as many of them as there is human DNA. It's literally like having itty bitty pets that live in and on your body of different species, and those guys are what is helping you be alive. Without them, you would be dead. You would be a sterile human and you would not be able to survive in this world. From the moment you come into this world, you're getting inoculated through the birth canal with bacteria from mom. That is direct gut bacteria when you come through the birth canal. Babies who are born by C-section are tending to miss out on some of that. And so they're going to start colonizing the more skin bacteria. Their bacteria quality is a little bit different. Now, if they go on to breastfeed, now they're going to start getting some of that gut bacteria they were missing. They're going to start nurturing that, etc. So there's a lot of ways that this comes to be, and it starts from birth. This is nature's way of inoculating us to go into this environment and survive and hopefully thrive. So when there's hitches in this process, we see hitches in health. So this living ecosystem, you guys, is very, very diverse. There's different kinds of bacteria and fungi and yeasts and things that make up this microscopic but absolutely full community of bacteria and microbes, okay, that are responsible for all these things in your health. And the thing is of these microbes, there are, people often say good bacteria, bad bacteria. I don't really like to say good bacteria, bad bacteria, because there's beneficial bacteria and then there's opportunistic bacteria. Opportunistic bacteria isn't bad bacteria. It can just do really bad things if it grows in a large quantity, if it overtakes the ratio, if it overgrows in the system, then we can start having a lot of issues. What's interesting is that the gut bacteria the bacteria in your gut really control and orchestrate all these functions, you guys, like hormone function, assimilation of nutrients, whether or not you're absorbing vitamins and minerals, how it's communicating to, the inflammation in your bloodstream and etc. Right? So this is a whole nother component of gut health. So just like the structural integrity is a component, right? So the structural integrity, you guys, if you have something which we call a leaky gut, okay, which is brought on by a multitude of things. Maybe you've been on a lot of pharmaceutical medications. Maybe your gut bacteria have been really off ratio. You've got a really high composition of opportunistic bacteria, etc. It starts making these tight junctions in your physical gut. The physical gut is like a net. Okay. And that netting is supposed to open just enough to let nutrition through the body, to absorb nutrition, not to allow the corn you just ate for dinner into your bloodstream. This is not supposed to be happening. But because so many people have such an inflamed and what we call leaky gut, where those nettings are over opening, allowing all this garbage to run wild in the bloodstream, now we're seeing something called chronic inflammation. And part of the reason for this too is our diet. It is the stuff in our the chemicals and that we're coming in contact with, etc., and that our ecosystem is off balance. So those living microbes, we have too many opportunistic bacteria and not enough good ones. The average human, to maintain optimal health, they say that you should have about 20% opportunistic bacteria to about 80% beneficial bacteria, right? And most people in industrialized cultures are the opposite. We have about 20% of that really good, beneficial, healthy bacteria and 80% of the opportunistic bacteria. And what happens is that in these opportunistic bacteria, you guys, we have these guys that are extra destructive. They eat through the tissues of the gut lining. They cause leaky gut. They exist. They make their way up into the small intestine. Bacteria are supposed to remain in the large intestine, not the small intestine. They need to stay out of there. But this is happening a lot, and it's usually those bacteria that aren't great in large numbers. It's not usually the positive, the healthy bacteria that's making its way into the small intestine. It's usually the opportunistic bacteria. And why it does this is because it's a great opportunity for it to feed on sugar. It can get there. It's going to climb into an area where normally the microbes don't get to go. And it's going to be the first for the food to come down. And its favorite food source is simple carbohydrates, simple sugars. You know, your white breads, your starches, alcohol especially, and sugars. Okay. Once I said alcohol, I just lost half the attendees here. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't, but that's a hard one for people, right? And this is when we call something SIBO. So that's small intestine bacterial overgrowth. It's something our coaches will teach a lot on. It's something that causes a lot of symptoms. It's one of the number one things we think is related to IBS. So if a person has IBS, there's a high probability that they have SIBO. And it can be a really tricky situation to get those bacteria now in regulation and out of the small intestine. And that's where understanding gut health and a restoration process is so beneficial. So that living ecosystem is the second component of gut health. And that's why it is so important. It's because we really need, and more than just the amounts of beneficial bacteria to opportunistic bacteria, more than just the ratio, we also need diversity, you guys. So in these microbes, we used to have incredible diversity, and recent science has started showing that the more diverse the population of microbes, the better health. It's not always just about numbers. Yes, we want a good ratio. You know, we want by far more beneficial bacteria than opportunistic bacteria, because these guys are more responsible. They do a lot of healthy things, and they keep these guys in check. Even bacteria that we don't love, certain types of E. coli and things like that, certain yeasts have a place in the gut. They're essential actually for healthy function when kept in the right ratio. And having the right ratio of good, healthy bacteria helps keep these guys in check, so that they're there to do exactly what they need to do, but they're not overgrowing and wreaking havoc, causing issues with yeast overgrowths and candida and SIBO and leaky gut and all these things, okay, or different kind of E. coli's and whatnot. So that's what's ideal. So is that ratio, but also important is the diversity. So just the diversity, the amount of species that we have. So think of like nature, think of types of animals. I like to use I like to reference corn. Okay. If you've ever like watched documentaries and stuff about corn before it was genetically modified and created into kind of the Franken corn that it is now, especially in like Mexico and stuff, corn and like maize, which is similar. Basically, they had so many varieties. Potatoes, we've seen this with too, just so many different types, different colors. It was colorful, it was diverse, right? So even though it was all corn, there was these different types of corn. There's different kinds of vegetables. We don't just say vegetables. Like if we just eat a couple different vegetables our whole life, that monotony isn't ideal for our health. We want a variety. We want a variety of color. Different colors mean different nutrients. Okay. Our gut microbes are the same way. We are healthier people when we have more diversity. And when they've done recent studies and they've researched people in other cultures, especially more indigenous populations, everyone's gut bacteria ratios and like their kind of what their makeup differs depending on location and lifestyle. So if all of us were optimally healthy and we'd not been introduced to processed foods and chemicals and et cetera, and excess stress and pharmaceuticals, right? And we all have these great guts, our guts would still look different continent to continent. It's going to depend on the weather and the types of food that grows there and the things your gut bacteria and your microbes are going to adapt ideally for you to the environment you're in. So we're still going to see some very different profiles across continents, right? But we see a large diversity, and that's great. That means that's what keeps everyone healthy in these different environments that they're living in. What we're seeing now is with the additions of antibiotics and pharmaceuticals and pesticides in our foods and excess stress and poor diet and all these things, we have hurt and our gut microbes, and this is destroying the diversity in the gut, which is destroying health overall. So this is what we're seeing. This is why the ecosystem is so important. And I like to use the analogy of a fish tank, you guys. So imagine you have a fish tank and you put a bunch of fish in it, right? You don't just put a bunch of one kind of fish. I mean, sometimes you will, but most of the time you add a few different kinds of fish. If you had nothing but bottom feeders, they would die because they'd have nothing to feed on. So you have bottom feeders because they feed a little bit of the waste from the other fish, and you feed the other fish these foods, and there's this little ecosystem that happens. You put little plants in there because the plants create the oxygen. Okay, those fish are your microbes, the diversity, the functionality. Okay, and they need to be fed in order to be healthy. How are these fish fed? They feed on certain healthy fibers called prebiotics. Okay, so the fish, we like to call those probiotics. So if you guys have ever heard of probiotic supplement or probiotic foods, fermented foods, okay, this is how we inoculate the gut with more and more bacteria, either through food source or supplementation. Now, since our food is less available, these microbes we're not eating as clean as we used to, but then they need to eat too. So if we don't feed our fish, they die. Okay, the tank is the structure of the gut. If you've got a hole in the tank, then your ecosystem is not going to go well, right? Okay, so this is what this is why it's important. So if you guys can understand a little bit, I know that's a lot to digest at once, but the structural integrity of the gut, that is number one. That is the first component. The second component is the living ecosystem, which is essential. And this does not just, your living ecosystem of microbes, you guys, does not just exist in the gut. It exists on your skin. You have different microbes that live on your eyeballs. You have different microbes that live in different orifices because they carry out different functions. Nature, your body is magnificent. And I like to emphasize that because when we're looking at health, when we're looking at healing, when we're looking at restoring, we need to understand how magnificently we were created and how amazing the body is. Okay. So just this whole world working for you is really incredible. Okay. It's something to believe in. The third component, you guys, is the brain gut connection. And this is what makes us different. This is where we talk about, we go from only analytical gut health, only science, to the intuitive and thorough parts of gut health. Okay. So the brain gut connection is so massive. The gut affects the brain, and the brain equally affects the gut. And we mean this by multiple ways. You have something called the vagus nerve that runs from brain to gut, and it's full of all kinds of neurons. And if you're familiar with the nervous system, right? You have a central nervous system. When you get anxiety or something, right? You feel it along this axis, and it affects everything in your body. If you've ever had your arms go numb because you're going to have a panic attack, if you've ever gotten chiropractic adjustments and had your your migraine go away. If you've ever gotten really nervous at something that started up here because you knew that you had to do a presentation or something, and all of a sudden you're like, I think I need to go to the bathroom. Maybe it's not even number two, maybe it's number one. It gets your bladder going too, right? This is the pathway of this nervous system. And we live in an overstimulated society. So not only does bad gut diversity, remember how we talked about, the bacterial ratios, right? Of opportunistic bacteria to beneficial. These bacteria, you guys, another big job of theirs is communicating hormonal function and is signaling stress responses to the brain. If you have stress going on in the gut, if there's stress amongst the gut bacteria, they will communicate stress to the brain. It will penetrate the blood-brain barrier, and it will cause inflammation amongst the brain. This is something that we're realizing is also connected and possibly giving us a lot of insight into mental health, into things like anxiety and depression, especially when we can't find a real source of past trauma. So where counselors are working with people and someone hasn't really presented much with trauma, or maybe they've had a big surgery and now they're having really bad panic attacks or depressive episodes, or they've just been on an antibiotic and now they're getting this, okay? This is how the gut can directly affect the brain very quickly, but the brain can also very much affect the gut. So we've seen this in people that have gone through trauma. Even with the cleanest of diets, they have a harder time healing that gut until they are addressing some of the deep subconscious dynamics of trauma or stressful experiences, especially chronic stress. Okay, because our chronic stress can start kicking up cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And what this does is it dysregulates the thyroid. It starts dysregulating the whole body. And now we're having mental health. We're having hormonal malfunction due to environmental factors like chronic stress. So this is why, you guys, we explain the holistic gut health. This is what makes it different, is that when we're approaching a gut restoration process, we're not just doing it with food. We're not just involving exercise and saying, hey, find time to meditate a little bit, okay? Like, we're going to also get into more components of the gut-brain connection, of talking to the body, of understanding and giving enough power to all the processes. Because we all just want to focus on food, whether it's easy for us or not. We want to focus on food, and we want to focus on weight loss and probably fitness in there. Okay, but the other things are just as weighty, sometimes even more. So one of the first things that we teach when we go through the gut restoration process with people, one of the first things our coaches do is go through tools of helping people calm that central nervous system. Because if it is wonky, the body's just going to be inflamed. The gut is going to, it's like if you've ever riled up your kids and gotten them all stressed out, right? Like, we can't communicate to them. We can't get them to, chill out and get ready for bed unless we can calm them down. Okay, so we need to calm down this process, and that's one of the first places we start. We teach something called the life wheel, and I just want to go through this with you guys. So like we say, this life wheel that we do, if I knew how to quickly screen share right now, I would, but I don't. So I'm just going to spit it out. So I just want you to envision it in your head, okay? It's in the Buddha Belly program, though. If you ever do take that, you'll see it in there. But humans are mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual beings, okay? We do this life wheel so you can understand how many components make up you and who you are and your health on all aspects, and how you've gotten where you've gotten, and how you can get through where you're at. Okay, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. In those quadrants, we've broken those quadrants down even further into subquadrants. So like for your physical health, you have diet, you have exercise, you have sleep, you have hydration. Okay, so like those are all components of just one quadrant, you guys. And yet this is where most of us like to hang out. A lot of people in the nutrition world, a lot of people in the fitness world, we just hang out in this quadrant. We forget that there's 3 other quadrants with multiple subquadrants. We're ignoring 3/4 of our well-being by focusing on just these quadrants, if we're even doing that thoroughly. And it can provide a great distraction from the things that are really screaming at us, the things that make us mentally healthy, the things that make us spiritually healthy. Do we have community? Isolation is one of the most destructive things for human health, is isolation. Is there, do you have joy? I mean, it's our mindset. I mean, that's part of it, right? Is our mindset. Do we have, one of the best things for brain health, and you guys will see this if you go into the Buddha Belly Life podcast. I did an interview with, Dr. Brant Courtwright, and he said, one of the greatest ways to maintain functional integrity of the brain, so health of the brain, so we don't have mental cognition decline. One of the greatest things that helps the brain is meaning, having meaning. actually helps the brain not deteriorate. That is a big deal, you guys. This is stuff we need to pay attention to when we're talking about health. If you're a coach and you're listening to this, and you're coaching people, or if you're an individual that's here to do this, this is a huge deal. Okay, so that's why we teach the life wheel, and we incorporate that in the way that we address holistic gut health. Okay, I'm gonna share some really cool stories with you guys, and these are some repeats of what you'll find in the podcast a little bit. But my good friend, somewhat colleague, Dane Johnson, you'll see there's a great interview with him all about Crohn's disease, and he was literally on his deathbed at like, I think he was 120 pounds. The guy's like 6'2", and he was going to die. They were going to remove a massive piece of his colon. They basically told his parents to come say goodbye to him. He had a very, very severe form of Crohn's disease. And even he had a naturopath that he'd been working with. He had his regular doctors. Everyone was trying the things. They weren't working. And he had a choice to make. Does he keep going with the drugs in the way that they were going to do it, or does he take it into his own hands? He walked out of the hospital that day with shortly after, obviously not on his deathbed, but shortly after this, he walked out of the hospital with no idea of where he was going to go and what he was going to do. From that, he saw a healing process, and he'll explain in an interview. Healing is never linear. It was a large 2-year process. There was so much knowing of himself that he came throughout this process. He had to dig in so much, and he had to realize, and this is what you guys will all realize, this is what as coaches we pound home, this is what every person is going to realize, that you are your own greatest practitioner. This does not mean that you don't bring powerful and incredible and influential people into your circle, into your arena to help you through the process, to partner with you. But it means that you are your own greatest practitioner. And he learned that. And he started taking notes. And this healing process, like I said, it was slow. And when he'd have a win, he'd write it down and he'd notate it. And when he'd have a loss or backpedal or something that was really negative, he just started taking notes. And he just realized that he couldn't force the hand overnight, but he took it into his own hands. And now he has been so far in remission, you guys. He has developed his own program called the Shield Program. He has something called Crohn's and Colitis Lifestyle. That's how we met. And he trains coaches, and he has helped people into remission with Crohn's and colitis all over the entire world. It has turned into his purpose. He is impacting so many lives from what was almost his deathbed, right? And he didn't know what the outcome of that journey was going to be. He just decided to jump in and start the process himself. My friend Tracy, she works with Microbiome Labs. They're a clinical grade probiotic and gut supplement company. She got to work with them because she started using those products to heal her. So she talked about her excessive SIBO, so that's small intestine bacterial overgrowth. Most people don't understand this. It's more than just, IBS issues running to the bathroom. I mean, she was losing weight. She couldn't keep it on. She had 2 small children. She said she could barely go to the grocery store without using the bathroom 5 times. I mean, it absolutely took her out of life, made her miserable. And her process was the same. She had to walk it alone. She took things from certain people. She had to put together her own thing. And she now is an ambassador, and she works for Microbiome Labs because those probiotics and getting her gut to where it is now, it was so effective for her that now she actually works for the company. There's really great podcasts all about SIBO if you find that too. My friend Dawn, so this is one of my favorite podcast episodes. This was one of my favorite interviews I did. And this is something a little less physical. She had dealt with chronic pain. She had so many issues, you guys, growing up and stuff. She had to teach herself to walk multiple times. Okay. Her body was failing her. She had chronic pain issues. She had multiple conditions that they were diagnosing her with, and severe gut problems and etc. And her thing is she's gotten really into tapping. She does more with the energy process of health. So how we talked about mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. We talked about, so she shares a bit about her childhood, her upbringing with her mother, a lot of the experiences she went through, and how those things put her at such a high risk of autoimmune type symptoms, of chronic pain, of all this bodily deterioration. And it wasn't until she sought really healing those things and speaking directly to her physical body, you guys, she talks all about it in the interview, that she started healing. Her story is amazing. She talks about, she was on the brink of taking her life. She had a little boy. Things that mental health is my passion, if you don't already know that. It's an incredible story. And she said the same thing. She was her own best practitioner. She had to connect back with her body. She had to listen to what it wanted. And while there was beautiful people that influenced her journey and that she brought into the process, ultimately it was her journey, just like it's mine, just like it's yours. Okay. So we're at 39 minutes. I promised you guys I'd try not to go over 45. I'm really excited that you joined me today. So a lot of people are saying, okay, like, what do I do about this? What are you talking about? Where do we find out more information and stuff like that? Okay. If you had a coach that invited you here, they are one of my specially trained coaches. We have a few hundred around the world. And these guys are trained differently than your average health coach. They are trained in this holistic gut health process. They are trained in protocol. They are trained in the life wheel, in understanding the complexity of human health and of the things. They are a resource, you guys. And one thing I want you to keep in mind, so if someone invited you here today, that's the person. If you have questions about anything, please reach out to your person. If you came here because any of my stuff, you can find me at buddhabellylife.com. You can find us at guthealthschool.com. You can try and DM me on one of the media sites. I have some people that will be looking over that. I'm taking sabbatical soon, so do it within the next week. But if someone invited you, or if you want to connect to a coach, reach out to us too, and we can help connect you to a coach. The cool thing about the coaches, you guys, and so we have the Buddha Belly Gut Restoration Program. It's a 5-week program, and it takes you through the holistic approach to gut restoration, laying the foundation of gut restoration, which is really life transformation when it comes down to it. And what this is it's not a one and done thing. It's not something that I would encourage you guys to start if you're not ready to jump into a journey, to have your life, to have your health, to get to know your body, to love it differently and nurture it like it may not have been done before now. Okay, this is a process where we're going to walk you through a lot of gut specific stuff like food and diet and removal protocol and reintroduction protocol and alternatives to treats and healthy foods and things. But what we're going to do, the dietary component of what we do is we like to remove a lot that are common irritants and big interferers with the health and function of the gut. And we do that for a little while so that we can read the body, not only to allow the gut to calm down, but so that we can read where it's at, so that you can learn to read where it's at. And you can do this process alone in one of the courses, but to do it with a coach is much more valuable because they will help walk you through that. They will support you. They will get you resources or help recommend people that you can put in your team. Because remember, you are building a team. Your coach is merely part of your team. Okay, this is your journey. And so we'll go through that process. We'll also talk about some of the mind-body components of gut health, calming that central nervous system and why that is so important, why talking to the body is an essential part of the healing process, why reprogramming your subconscious throughout the process is also so important. Different types of movement and how this can help overall inflammation and restoration, and on really setting your life vision. That's one of the things I love the most about the coaches and about them working with the program and how we do this is that we want to know where we want to be. This is it. There's so many things out there that are like, here's a quick diet. Okay, here's the thing. While weight loss and all of that and less suffering and conditions and stuff is all just a side effect of gut restoration, it totally is. We don't focus on that part here because we are here for bigger things. We are here for life transformation. When you can dig into your body like that and you commit to the process of listening to it, learning it, and nurturing it, it's not restrictive when you're caretaking. Caretaking is not restriction. Okay, starvation is restriction. In fact, nutritional starvation, when we're not eating actual nutritious food, is a form of starvation. It's a form of abuse to the body. Okay, we aren't doing that. We are nurturing, we are nourishing, and we are getting the body, we're taking care of something that we may not have been taught even how to do. And we're doing that so we can develop this relationship with ourselves, with our body. And in the process of healing the body, you guys, so many things happen on a deeper level. I know that for myself, when I have, every time that I undertake this, I like to do this on a quarterly basis. I usually go through a gut restoration every quarter with the students. And I like to then follow a maintenance, the maintenance after that, as much as I can. But depending on what time in my life it is, it's insane the things that can kick up in me. I've been through plenty of things in my life. I've been through divorce, I've been through loss, I've been through, childhood stuff, etc. Like there's so much. And the body remembers things that sometimes the mind doesn't remember. And it's sometimes it brings out stuff that you weren't anticipating. You might be like, what is going on with me? What's going on with these emotions? But what is really beautiful about that is, like I said, your body, you guys, is for you. It may feel sometimes like it's broken, like it's all the things, but it's not. It is a symptom. It is giving you insight into places that it needs nurturing, where because it's trying to take care of you. It is literally works every day to save your life. Your body works every day to save your life. Your panic attacks, your migraines, your skin breakouts, your digestive issues, your sleep problems are all signals from your body telling you, I need nurturing somewhere. You need to take care of you. It's like a baby, right? It's like taking care of a child. Okay. This is so important. So it is for you. We've got to learn how to listen to it. Then we've got to learn how to communicate it with it. And then we've got to learn how to answer its call. And that's what this process is for, is learning that part. And you guys, once you learn those components of yourself, once you start learning that, I should say, it's a forever process, right? But when you start learning that, you guys, you will never forget it. You will never unlearn it. You will never just not hear it again when it screams. It's amazing. And we're part of a culture where normally when the body screams, we shut it up with a pill. We've been taught to go somewhere else and have it just, treat with this, give it a pill and shut up the symptom, right? And we're totally looking over and not attending to the root of the need, which is the root of the self-need. And from this process, you guys, this is why I call this a transformation. It's not just about physical transformation. It's not just about outward bodily health transformation. It is literally the entire transformation. It's you don't know what you are capable of until you walk the journey of working so hard in something, especially for you. There's nothing better to invest in your time, in your energy, and your efforts than your longevity, your quality of life. Okay, it's attached to everything. So we do encourage a lot of that vision setting in the process. And if you're working with a coach, they're going to keep reintegrating that. A good coach should never make you feel shameful or discouraged. The process isn't about perfection. The process is about endurance. It's about staying with it. If you're going to do it, just do it. If you really suck at it for a week and keep coming back and be like, this and this happened next week. Go through 5 weeks and then jump back on another 5 weeks and do it again. Keep up with the process. Work with your coach and find a maintenance routine or whatever. Okay. Like it's about joining with a community and joining and starting a process of true self-transformation from a deep level. Okay. So I want to just encourage you guys to do that, because a healthy body and a healthy mind, when we are fully in alignment, when that life wheel is more tight, right? There's always something, right? We all have our areas of need and they rise at different times. But when that whole self, that whole life wheel self, right, is somewhat in alignment, we and we start finding things that give us purpose, that give us meaning, right? And that ultimately is what life is all about. That's why I'm such an advocate of empowering healing and health, is because of the purpose that resides from it. So I just want to encourage you guys, if you were invited here by a coach, and if you were even thinking about joining the gut restoration program, we are going to be running some pretty soon. It's an all online course, and it includes the whole thing. And you can, if you were invited by a coach, you can see there some of the coaches are working with people individually. Some of them are just helping connect you to the program, and some of them are working with groups. So please see the coach who invited you. They actually have the ability to get a special discount that is better than anything you'll find directly on our site. And I really just encourage you guys to do this process. I want to thank you for joining so much today. I've really appreciated having you guys here. I'm really proud of you for even just taking the time to open this chapter right now, to even be here, to think on it, to learn about it. I hope something maybe stuck out to you. And we're going to try and do this once a month. So just thank you so much for joining. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to please type them in the chat, and I'll answer a couple of quick questions maybe. But if not, please feel free, reach out to your coach. And if you want connection to the podcast, they can connect you there too. If you were here because you followed me, buddhabellylife.com, you can find anything there. Feel free to reach out and feel free to ask any questions. Thank you, babe. So good. Thank you, babe. I sure love you guys. I'm about to go on sabbatical pretty soon. So was this recorded? I cannot promise for sure if this is recorded. So this is the thing about these fun live streams now, is I'm not entirely sure. I think it records, so I think we can still access it after the fact, but you just cannot take my absolute word for it. So we will know. If any of my coaches are asking, we're gonna know pretty soon. We're gonna know when we get off if it recorded and you're able to access it still. So, but we are going to do this once a month because this is great. We're going to start having a lot more resources too for individuals. Like I say, my passion is mental health. I'm taking sabbatical here in just over a week, which means I am taking 4 weeks. And here's a little, for anyone that's still hanging on here watching this, this is a great example of what I'm talking about here. So I'm taking sabbatical because I think everyone should, especially if you're in a profession where you're investing in people, where you're coaching, where you're giving, where you're doing stuff. And so I'm just needing to do that. I have 6 kids. My husband and I are both self-employed. We've got a wild life. And they can't take a back seat to anything, right? They come first. So to step away from work for a little while is really good just for restoring. But I'm also using it to fully restore and to learn a few more extra things. I'm studying some stuff on deep trauma and you know how it stores in the body, and so I'll be doing that for a little bit. And one of the biggest reasons, that I want to do this, sorry, I think my connection just got a little funky. One of the biggest reasons is because I found myself so busy helping people with this dynamic, multifaceted concept of health, right? If they're coming to me and they're like, hey, I'm doing the gut health diet and I work out a lot and I'm still having XYZ issue, right? I would be the first person to go, hey, you're only working in less than a quarter of your life wheel here, right? Like there's so much more to you. It's like, let's pay some attention to that. You know, I'd be the first person to say that. And I found myself not working in more than a quarter of my own life wheel because I was just using all that for everybody else. And then I was just checking off the box of my diet and my exercise and my things. And then I'm tending to the kids and I'm giving and doing the stuff that I love and I'm passionate about. And my body started screaming at me a little bit. And I can tell with my thyroid, I can tell with my adrenals, I can tell by some of the things, my anxiety, things it does, right? It was signaling me. And I'm like, what the heck? Like I've been on protocol for 2 weeks, you know, and I've been doing this and I've been doing that because I wasn't, I needed a me in front of me. And so I finally sat with that and I was like, okay, I've been thinking about this for like 6 months. And I decided a little over a month ago or 2 months ago, actually, that I was going to do it. But that's why, is because it is so important. It is so impactful. We can't out diet and exercise stress and trauma and the other aspects of that make up our health and make up who we are. We just can't do it. Okay. And we're not here to be counselors, you guys. If any coaches are still hanging on, we're not here to be counselors, right? But we are here to be partners. Every individual is in the driver's seat of their own journey. If they decide to get in the car, they are in the driver's seat of their own journey. But we are a passenger. We are a loving, incredibly powerful, empowering passenger, and we have an awesome toolbox. We have an awesome toolbox of resources, not just of things that we can do, but of other people we can bring in, right? I have great references when I'm like, functional medicine doctors and naturopaths and people that do, tapping and EMDR work for PTSD, and the best counselors that I know that do really good with deep rooted trauma and all these different things. Like I have all these people in my toolbox or suggestions for people like them because of all the times I've used them in my own life. And that's what we as coaches are. We are excellent partners in the process of someone else's journey, but we are not the journey. We are not the healer, right? We individuals, it is our journey. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this. I hope it recorded. And if so, we'll be able to share. It'll be an exclusive link, but thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate you guys. And I hope the process of your journey and that you realize that you are worth it.